Hello, friends. In today's episode, we will hear the story of a married woman who gets courted by her son's friend. Let's hear the story in her own narration. Hello. My name is Olivia. I am a 37-year-old married woman. I got married at a very early age. I was 17 and didn't know much about love and affection. Once matchmakers visited our house, after which my father told me that I would be getting married. My husband is 10 years older than me. We have a son. My husband has been good to me for years despite the age difference between us. He works very hard. My son started university last year. He has been creating problems lately. He could barely finish the first year of university. He was living in a student dormitory, but constantly wanted to rent a separate apartment. My father objected to this, claiming that my son wouldn't handle staying alone in an apartment. Actually, my husband is right. Our son can't handle living alone in an apartment. This is partly my fault because I made his life very comfortable. But after insisting, my husband finally agreed that our son renting an apartment. He had a friend named Michael. They get along well and decided to move in together. We finally found the house he wanted and rented it for him. We cleaned the house, stayed with him for a few days, and returned to our hometown. But my son's problems wouldn't end. He would call us every day, complaining that he couldn't cook any meal or clean the house. He would nag about passing exams, doing housework. He wanted me to move into his place, despite my husband's disapproval. I did as my son asked after his begging and convincing me. I finally moved into my son's house. But turned out that our son had neither classes nor exams. He was out all night with his friends. I couldn't spare my son. If his father found out about his lifestyle, he would send him back to the dormitory. His roommate Michael is a good guy, the same age as my son. Michael would reprimand my son for going out every night while his mom was at home. Michael would study in his room most of the time. After a while, I started seeing Michael as my son. One evening, my son didn't come home after school. He called me and said, "Mom, I'll be an hour late, I'm out with friends." Then, there was a knock on the door. "Michael, aren't you with Joseph?" I asked. "Aunt Olivia, I didn't join him." "I'm tired," he said. As dinner was ready, I called out to Michael, but he didn't hear me. I thought he must have fallen asleep and opened the door to his room. He was masturbating on the bed. When I saw him like that, I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. I left his room without saying a word, my heart was racing. 10 minutes later Michael came in, his face red, I couldn't look at him. He sat down at the table after apologizing to me. I told him it was my fault, that I shouldn't have entered his room without knocking. We had dinner. He offered to help me clean the table. He rubbed against me a few times while leaving the dishes in the kitchen. Normally the kitchen is narrow, there had never been two people in it, but it wasn't narrow enough to rub against each other. It happened so fast that I couldn't say anything. I made tea and asked if he would drink it. We started drinking tea in the living room when he suddenly said to me, "You are so young, did you get married early? Your husband must be very jealous of you." If I had such a young and beautiful wife, I would be very jealous. The way he was talking and acting was different that night. I wanted to change the subject. I asked him if he had a girlfriend. He looked up and said no. He said girls at school were not for him. Actually, Michael is a very handsome guy, tall, healthy. He said girls at school were immature, that he liked mature women. Then he added, "Do you think this is normal?" I pretended I didn't understand. I told him I'd never dated a man other than my husband, but added that liking mature women was normal. "You're not old, you're a mature woman," he said. I couldn't find any words to say. He then apologized for that scene in his room. He admitted that before going to the university early in that morning, he saw me sleeping on my bed in my nightgown as the door to my room was open. He said he was thinking about me while masturbating. I interrupted him, telling him not to talk to me in that way. After realizing that I was angry, he apologized again and went to his room. After that day, he would buy flowers and put them in a vase in the middle of the living room every day, telling me that the flowers were for me. He was always trying to help me. He greeted me every morning, telling me how beautiful I was. He was trying to compliment me at every opportunity. I started enjoying this after a while. My husband had never complimented me once. I liked Michael's energy. I ended up staying in that house for 2 months. After a while, Michael's mother offered to stay in our son's apartment to take care of the house in order to give me some break. So I went back to my hometown. Of course, my husband was very happy about this. During our first night after 2-month break, I couldn't get Michael out of my head in bed. Suddenly my husband asked me why I was so crazy and claimed there was something wrong with me. "Darling, we haven't been together for 2 months, isn't it normal?" I said. "Don't exaggerate, are we teenagers?" he said. All my pleasure was gone. Sex lasted for 3 minutes and he fell asleep. Yes, actually he was right. The reason for my excitement was Michael. I had unintentionally imagined him. My husband and I didn't have a very bright sex life, but we had never been separated for months. My husband's behavior bothered me a lot. After a few days, Michael called me to see how I was doing. We talked about the weather for a while. Then he told me he missed me, that his mother did not cook as well as I did. He started calling me every other day under the pretext of asking how I was doing, and we would chat for about an hour. He was constantly complimenting me. One evening, I found myself having sex on the phone. I felt so bad. I was very ashamed of myself. I didn't pick up Michael's phone for a week, but he was sending me apology messages. He started sending messages day and night. After a while, he told me he was madly in love with me. Finally, he told me about his plans. He said his father was well off and would open a company branch for him. He even said that after school we would live in the city of our choice and get married. I warned him not to talk like that, after which he calmed down. Then my son returned home for the half-year break, and according to the plan, I would go to his apartment after the break was over. I told my son that I couldn't stay in his place anymore, but he insisted that I change my mind. So I did. At the first opportunity, I warned Michael, "Look, get these thoughts out of your head. If you force me, I'll pack my things and go home." He agreed. But he treats me so well and compliments me so much that I can hardly hold myself back. From time to time, he reminds me about the night we had phone sex, then describes all the things he would do to me if we got intimate. I immediately change the subject or tell him to stop. But I'm a human too. He affects me. I don't know what to do. He gave his word that everything that happens would stay between us. I have no idea what to do.